Hello, everyone. This is Mickey Moore, your host for Run Life Today. Another episode bringing you inspiring and authentic conversations. Hello, good morning, Ellie. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for being with us today. And to our audience, this is another one of those episodes where we want to hear from those who have discovered the art of integrating many lanes of work and life to some degree of success. And of course, how we put that is those that have learned to run life more than life running them. At any time, if you want more information about what we're doing, please visit our website, runlifetoday.org. We've got a few episodes up and we're excited to be releasing some more soon. But let's get to our conversation today with my good friend and author,
Oh, God.
Ellie Rosario, Elizabeth, Ellie, as we know her. But thank you. I know you're busy. Thanks for giving us some time today.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me. I really, I'm going to enjoy this. I can already feel it.
Well, again, when we talk about inspiring and authentic conversations, that's it, right? It's folks like you who really have a passion for people. And so thank you for saying yes to the invitation. You and I have known each other for a few years, but as I always do, and for the audience's benefit, I want to kind of give them a little background, right? So outside of all the research I can do online, or
what is out there for me in Google world?
Yeah, it's out there these days. But tell us a little bit about where you're from, maybe your upbringing, your family when you were little, all the way up to I guess you're kind of right before you got into your career starting. But give us that background, Ellie, please.
All right. Wow. Okay. So I am originally from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in Rio Piedras. I was there until I was probably 14, and then we moved over to Tampa. I was in Tampa for about 10 months, and then I've been in Tallahassee ever since. So it was quite a culture shock. I'm not gonna lie on that one. That was tough, but I made it, and I'm still here, and everybody still wonders why the heck I'm still here, but here I am,
Yeah. Well, okay. So when you say we, break that down for me, family-wise. Mom, dad, brothers, sisters, only child.
So my mom, she actually just recently passed away in October. So, but my mom and my brother and I, it was just the three of us. So we moved over to Tampa from Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico is more like my mom, my grandma, my brother and I, mainly my grandma, with the upbringing and everything, because my mom was working a lot. And then, so we moved up here. She got a job. She was a physician, and she got a job up here.
Okay. Older brother, younger brother?
He's my baby brother. We're a year apart, and we look exactly the same. So I can actually go either way if I take my hair out,
Yeah.
Wrong topic.
I go there. Yeah. So interesting. You're one of my best friends, Willie Correa. I don't know if you know Willie Correa, but I remember when he came from Puerto Rico as a young man. One of the things he struggled the most with through schooling and then his early career in town was just the culture shock, one, but the language. He was always so apprehensive and afraid that he wasn't speaking English as good as he should, right? And especially in the business setting. And I just remember when he and I would talk about it, I'd say, hey, look, use it as your advantage. You have a niche. You could communicate better with people that I can't. So take advantage of that. Did you have that similar kind of an issue where you worry about people understanding what you were saying and all that?
I think I could understand people. I mean, I was very fortunate in Puerto Rico. We know both languages, and we go to school for both. So I had my Spanish class and I had my English class. And my mom was born and raised in the Bronx, so she knew English. My uncle knew English, so it was something that I knew how to do. All my school books in Puerto Rico were in English. My science books, my math books, they were all in English. So I knew it. I just didn't speak it all the time, obviously, except for class. And so when I got here, it was very hard to understand people with the Southern accent. that was really hard. That was challenging for me. So I would sometimes just look at people, and I remember this girl that I met, she would sort of work as a translator for me. She's this one specific instance where this girl was asking me for a nickel, but the way she was saying, I was like, what is she saying? And it's a nickel, 5 cents, but they just, the Southern twang or whatever was just so deep that I just,
Yeah.
couldn't deal with it. But then the culture part of it, yeah, that's very shocking. I mean, you know me, I am like, oh my God, how are you? How are you? I give you a kiss, give you a hug.
Right.
That's very Puerto Rican culture. And here, people would be like, oh my God, what is she doing? She's getting close to me. Like, they would freeze. I have literally felt people's bodies just like tighten up as I come close to them. I'm like, it's okay. It's just a way of saying hello. Nothing bad.
Yeah. Well, and obviously to your credit, everything's worked out, and into Willie too. I mean, he ended up developing into one of the best, commercial personal bankers here in town, because again, he can communicate with some that I can't, and he developed his own market and niche. Okay, so then that was around early 90s, I guess you got here. You've been here a while. So what about the schooling piece, your education? Tell me a little bit about that and how that worked out, your selection process, what you wanted to study and all that.
Oh, so that kind of got sidetracked a little bit because I got pregnant in high school. So for those of you that know, I have 3 kids, but my oldest is 25. And so I got pregnant in high school, and to me, I was always a good student. So I was a straight A student on a roll. Like, I love school. I know it's crazy because people look at me and they're like, aren't you the party girl? I'm like, no, I'm not at all. So I love learning, but I did, once I applied to Florida State and I got into Florida State. So that was really exciting. And I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I mean, I always wanted to be a physician, but I knew what it took, and I didn't want to take that away from my kid. I wanted to also, I was 16, 17 by the time I graduated high school. So it was like, hey, this is not just my journey now, this is our journey. So, I can't go to med school because I'm never gonna be able to help my daughter and raise her. But I can do other things. So then I kind of but I went for communications with business. And I actually enjoyed it, and I still do some of that today. And then years after, I went back and got my MBA from Colorado State University. So that's kind of my school.
Yeah. And again, I know I'm trying not to give away too much of our conversation today, but one of the things you talk about in your new book that came out, again, was recognizing some of those sacrifices that you made early on, and having kids now myself too, you have to do it.
It's tough. Yeah.
It's hard because you have your own goals, your own objectives.
Right. But I mean, it's like, once you have children, it's like, you can't be selfish anymore. I mean, up to a certain extent you can, but it's like, oh no. And I remember, I mean, my mom was a physician, and so was my dad, even though he was not a part of our lives. And I know what it took. And I saw my mom go through it. And that's why my grandma raised me, because my mom was never around. So it was difficult, and I didn't want to be that mom. I wanted, I mean, shit. Ooh. It was.
I'm sorry. This is my friend Ellie, who's Puerto Rican, and she's very friendly. So
I'm extremely friendly.
Yeah.
So
all right. Let me bring us back to, all right. So schooling, and then I want to kind of move around to career-wise, right? Again, so you've been successful in business. So tell me if you knew where you wanted to go right away, but otherwise, just go ahead and share some highlights of your career progressions. What you started out doing or landed in. Tell us a little bit about your professional career, if you will.
Wow, that's sort of, so my professional career, sort of, like I said, I wanted to be a doctor, so that kind of didn't work out. And then I wanted to be a consultant. Things just business stuff makes sense to me. Like, I'm good at looking at an organization and seeing what they're doing wrong, what they're being inefficient at, and just kind of going in there and tackling and say, okay, you know, you need to change these things. So I wanted to be a consultant, but that also just didn't plan out. And remind you again, when I graduated, I was 21. I had at the time a 4-year-old. So it wasn't like I could, again, be selfish and say, let me go travel, let me go to another city and let me do all these things and you stay here, or, you know, and I didn't have a support system if I were to move to another city to help me with my child. So I couldn't just pick up and leave and go wherever. I remember getting offers from people and they were like, oh, we need you here for 3 or 4 months training by yourself. And I was like, oh, that's not gonna work. What about my kid? So I just kind of, you know, I started getting into local jobs. So I started with the radio station, you know, didn't really enjoy that. Then I did insurance for 5 years and I didn't want to be a salesperson. So it was kind of, you know, that was just not my thing. I enjoyed some things about it. I got good at several things, but
what kind of insurance was it? What kind of
it
insurance?
was benefits, employee benefits.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was good at it, but again, I didn't want to be a salesperson. I didn't want to travel. You know, again, I had my kid here. And then, you know, long story short, I saw an ad one time in the Tallahassee Democrat. And by that point, I had already been investing in real estate. When I graduated college, I had like $2,000-$3,000 saved up from working at Publix. And my friend is a local dentist and investor here in town. And I was like, hey, I kind of want to get into real estate. How do I buy my first house? And so I did do that. And so by the time I left Brown & Brown Insurance, when I was working there, I had several houses. I had like three houses or so. So that's something that people don't know about me. They have no idea that I have houses.
And I didn't know you worked at Publix. I worked at Publix too.
Did you? Oh my God, are you kidding me? Club Pub in Pensacola Street and Mahan Street.
No, I didn't work at that one, but yeah, I used to bag groceries years ago at Publix. So woo, all right.
So I was office staff at Publix, and I learned a lot from Publix. And that's where a lot of inefficiencies. I mean, as much as I love Publix and I still go there almost every freaking day, I was like, why do you make your managers sit here for 60 hours a week and you force them to be here, but they don't have anything to do? Yeah. And I would talk to them like, we just sit here and do nothing because after a while there's nothing to do. So I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. Yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed Publix. I still have lifelong friends from Publix.
Nice. The small tidbit, the current CEO of Publix, I worked with him at the store in New Smyrna Beach when I was in high school.
Oh my God.
Todd Jones. So I met him a few times then. He was a couple years older than me. I just remember him, you know, being a little bit older, like a senior stock person or something. And now he's the CEO.
He's the CEO, yeah.
Okay, so you got houses, you owned some investment property already, and you saw an ad in the Democrat for
so Jackson Properties, you know, and so I don't even remember what the ad said, but I was like, oh, that, you know, I think I can do that. Let's figure it out. And I have never, you know, managed people's property or anything like that. It was just my own. And the only reason, not the only, I'm sure, but one of the reasons Erwin hired me was because I own property. And he was like, she has a stomach for it. She knows exactly what it feels like to be an owner, and that nail-biting feeling of, oh my God, if I lose a tenant, how do I come up with the rent money or the mortgage, not rent, the mortgage to pay this. So it's always, you know, a constant juggling and just being out there and making things happen. So I think he told me that there were some other people that had experience, because I had no experience other than I'm a real estate investor myself. And he's like, no, that did it for me. So and I've been here ever since, 16 years later.
16 years?
16 years this year.
Okay, so then your primary responsibilities in those 16 years, what consumes your day, month, year at Jackson Properties? What are some?
Oh my God.
I mean, I know you did some great things for them, and you want to be humble and not give all the details, and it's great. But I mean, share a little bit more as to the work that you do at Jackson.
You're right. I am bad about, you know, saying all the stuff that I do here. So it sort of started like, okay, you're just going to help us rent these houses out. And so my job has evolved to that, from what I call now, I'm Erwin's right hand, right? So I tell people the only thing I don't do is go to a bank and ask for money. That's something that he still does. It's still his name, his credit, his everything. So that he still does that. But I have a team here in the office, a sales team that I handle. I do all of the marketing through either myself personally, or hire people or contractors, or my team here that I teach them to do it. We've created internship opportunities for people. We've created scholarships opportunities for students. I have an outside team that I manage. All of my maintenance, contractors, everything is through me. I am sort of a contractor without a license, in terms of I know exactly what needs to happen, you know, and to when we go and renovate houses. I was showing to somebody the other day, I was like, nobody thinks that this is my life sometimes. Yeah.
Property management. So how many properties, just off the top?
So we have over 200 here in town. Then we have 3 RV parks in different places in the state. And then we have some condos in Pensacola.
Okay. And you are essentially the COO, right?
Whatever you want to call me, whether it's vice president, COO.
Right.
Yes.
Not that titles matter, but I mean, when I hear you describe your job, I mean, I mean, your operations, you've got some financial piece, you've got property management, you've got staffing and sales. So you're the COO, right?
The whole shebang. And I go out there and, you know, talk to people, mingle with people. I come in here. It's funny because I said, this is HR too, by the way. And you know me, Mickey, like, you should see my office. You should see the decoration. Like, you know, this is a very politically incorrect office.
Okay. And it's HR.
And this is HR. But Erwin always says, if you have a problem with her, come talk to me.
Oh, yeah. That would help them. So I think you may remember, you know, I used to work at Southern Scholarship Foundation, right? And we only had 26 properties around the state. But you know, when I got that job, I knew we had those properties, but the time and energy it takes and the resources to manage that. By the time I left that job, I mean, I felt pretty confident that, you know, property management now, I got a better understanding of it. I mean, from insurance and maintenance and liability.
I do it all.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You gotta have all of that. And whether it be the fire, you know, extinguishers and getting those certified, and you know, I mean, there was not an expense that I couldn't create. It was just okay, I gotta spend more money. All right, great.
I tell people, I'm like, I do everything from moving furniture during August and move in, move out, to go meet with bankers with Erwin. Like all across the board, I am in there. So it's definite. And it's funny because I don't look at it as property management, because I'm not managing, you know, we're not the middleman. Everything that we have, we own. So it's just one owner that has it all. And so we take care of it all and make sure that it stays for the next 40 years, since he's been doing it for that long.
And security, I mean, how big that is, I mean, for properties. I mean, anyway, so we could go and talk more.
Yeah, we could get, I mean, heck, one of my books is going to be about all of this, student housing.
So, okay, so now that's your primary job, but I know you've been at FSU, right? I mean, aren't you a professor?
Yes. So I'm not a professor. I was an adjunct.
I'm not an academic. Yeah, I'm not in academia, so I can't follow all the words and what I should or shouldn't say. So thank you for correcting me. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not either. So I actually, you know, this came about a couple of years, probably like 3 or 4 years ago. I had a couple of girlfriends that actually taught at FSU and said, you know, Ellie, you would be good at it. And I'm like, oh, you know, I don't know. I've thought about it. And all of a sudden, the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship was kind of building up and coming up. And one of my friends says, you know, you should really email Miss Susan Fiorito. She is very, you know, she's amazing. She's good into building women, and she's probably looking for people. And it took me a few weeks to build the strength to draft that email because I had no teaching experience. I'm thinking, oh my God, yeah, I run a company. But as you said, I'm like, I just kind of make things happen and move on. Like I don't sit here and, oh, well, let me tell you everything I've done. I'm not that person. So I just make it happen. So it took me a while to draft that email and said, this is why I think I would be valuable for you, your team, and ultimately to teach the students how to run a business or whatever. So long story short, I did it. And I met with her at Red Eye and she was like, all right, we'll do it. And it took a little bit because they were doing whatever it is that they needed to do to get everything running. And so I taught for 1 year. What year are we in? We're in 2021. So I taught, I believe, in 2019. So I taught, entrepreneurship. And then the second semester, so the first semester I taught students, the second semester I taught adults. So it was really cool to kind of learn what people are thinking. And, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of work. And I remember the other professors, not adjuncts, professors telling me, once you go a year, then you kind of build your curriculum and it becomes easier. But I only did it for that 1 year. I mean, we go back to, okay, what needs to drop so that I can make sure I can take care of everything in my life. And that was one of the things. I enjoy the experience. I actually still talk to some of the students. It's so cute to get a message that says Professor Rosario. And I'm like, that's just not me. Like, please call me Ellie.
Yeah. Professor Ellie.
Right.
Or adjunct Ellie.
Right. Oh, just Ellie. Like, let's just do Ellie.
Yeah, just do Ellie. Okay, so Jackson Properties, I guess then you'll be there for, another 5, 10, 20, 30.
I'm here to stay, man. Like I tell Erwin, I was like, unless you fire me, I'm pretty much set here. I feel very fortunate to be in this organization. And I love the fact that I'm not in a box. You know me, I don't work well in a box. As soon as you like put me tight, I'm like, let me spread my wings. Let me do what I'm good at doing.
I appreciate, and I'm sure Erwin appreciates, your kind words too. And I know in an article recently, you talked about how awesome it is to work in a place that allows you to be family first, that allows you the flexibility. It's not that you're not working any harder, you do, but it's giving you the time to move it about all on your own, right? So if you want to prioritize family, you can do that and not suffer for it in the workplace. Because I know years ago, that would be the case, right?
100%, yeah. So actually, look at this. Here, pause for a minute here. Look. So I have 2 pictures.
Yeah.
I have a couple pictures, but this is one picture from Erwin holding my baby boy.
Oh, that's great.
And then that just sits right there. And then here's the other picture of my son when he was probably 3 or 4, doing turn, also known as move in, move out in August, that very well. So
the turn is man, you're taking me back. Apartment Seekers, Chuck.
Yes, Chuck and Christina.
Yeah. So I we've been friends for years, and I was around their business for a little bit. Years ago when they were on Tennessee Street, and I just remember the financial focus around August, and of course the stories of what they would find when students moving out. And anyway, crazy stories. So
I've got plenty of pictures for the past 16 years. Yeah.
And claimed, right? Yeah. And lost deposits. They lose a lot of deposits.
Yes. And I see a lot. It's funny. And I have a bunch of them here. It's like street signs. Students are obsessed with street signs. I'm like, just can you not, please?
But let me know if you got one that says Mickey on it.
Okay.
All right. So let's change lanes a little bit, right? So we talked a little bit about, your background stuff and, your business and kind of your career. I want to move to some extracurricular activities, right? Because you and I think, connected years ago, as athletes, right? So tell the audience a little more about your passion there when it comes to running, say fitness in general, because I know you've done a lot of different things, but
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that, maybe a favorite accomplishment or just what it means to you to do those things.
So if you allow me, I'm gonna take you all the way back to 1980s. I don't know what time frame in the 80s, but let's just say I was wearing my mom's leotard, her tights, and her leg warmers. And my journey with fitness began at a rooftop hotel aerobics class with my mom.
Okay.
I believe it was I don't remember the name of the hotel or where we were, because I used to live in Isla Verde in San Juan. So it's by the beach. And I remember going into that gym, which was a hotel, to the rooftop with my mom. And the girl that was sitting behind the desk had these very muscular arms. And I looked at her and she's like, yeah, this guy made me do it, but it's okay. And so it was because I was in awe of her arms. And then I took the class, and Mickey, I've been high on life ever since. And that's what I tell people. I was like, I don't need drugs, I don't need alcohol, I'm high on life. Could you imagine me on it anyways? Like, that's not good.
Right.
But so my journey with fitness began at that rooftop aerobics class. I just fell in love with it. I love dancing. So it just became another form of movement. And then I'm working out, and wait, I'm working my butt too. Oh my God, it was unbelievable. And I was a young girl. I mean, like I said, I was in the 80s, so I wasn't even a teenager yet. This was before, I was probably 8, 9. And from then on, I never stopped. I played volleyball growing up, for fun. I played sports, kicking ball in the streets. And then when I was in my 20s, probably, but I would say pretty early 20s, maybe college, I began running. Oh, definitely college, because I would get out of Publix at midnight and I would go home and I would go on a run, and then I would go study. And then I would wake up at 6 to do it all over again. But at 12:30 at night, I would go running, and so that's kind of where it started. And it's funny because I'm sure you get this all the time. Oh my God, I hate running. Oh my God, I can't do it. My breathing, my knees, my this, my that.
Yeah.
It took me 5 years to like it. And so I was like, it took me 5 years to actually understand how it really works and what it does to my body, and how I need to breathe so that I'm not like, dying out there. You don't just start sprinting, right? So that kind of was a thing. And then I remember in Tampa, I would go to the step aerobics classes. Like, I loved the stepper back then. So this is like old school. This is in the 90s now, right? And then
did you have the long leggings and stuff?
As my daughter Emma does, and my coworker Noelle. Yes. I had it all, and I loved it. Like, when I lived in Tampa for those 10 months, I would get out of school, the bus will drop me off, I would change, I would bike to the clubhouse gym, and I would do 3 and 4 step classes, and I would go back and study. Like, I loved it. And I, became friends with a lot of the people there. And so then in my early 20s, I started running, and Taibo, you remember Taibo? You remember that? I had a mean uppercut, man.
He's doing
I was like, ooh, this one works. Like,
but you do know, he's doing a new commercial for, what is it, Progressive or Geico or something?
Oh my God, no, I didn't know that. But I do remember throwing those uppercuts and, biking. So, fast forward, years, I started doing marathons. I don't even know why, but right behind me is the first marathon I ever did. Yeah. And I was pregnant with Emma when I did this race. So this is the Chicago Marathon. And it's funny because most people think that's me. If you look at it from here, she's got the lips and the nose and the curls. I'm like, no, it's not me. I'm not taking credit for that.
What year did you do it?
So that was 2009.
Okay.
2009. So that was my first one. And then the funny thing, it's for me, I'm not built like you. You're a slim runner. You're like that gazelle out there. You're that sub-5, sub-6. That's you, my friend. This girl has thighs. so, um, so I remember I wanted to run every single day, and it became very painful. I was like, man, I'm hurting. And then when after I had my third child, Emma, my hips were moving because I got on the treadmill too fast. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is not good. So then I said, I don't know what got into me, but I was like, I can swim. I grew up in an island. I used to swim. I can bike. I love biking and I love running. So let me go do triathlons. Let me see if that's something that I got in me. And I didn't know anybody in that world. And I Googled and I walked into a Golf Wins Tri Club meeting. And the first person I meet is Brian Deloge. And who's a dear friend of mine who, I've known from Erwin's political things. Right. And I'm like, oh, I can't escape you people. And the rest is history. I mean, I keep moving and running. I mean, ran this morning, but, I also walk and I jog and, but that's my fitness journey. Oh, and I taught fitness at Sweat Therapy and Anytime Fitness for a year as well.
Again, what I hear, the consistency thing there is just being active, right?
Yes.
And so from my standpoint, and thank you again for the kind words, but it's all relative. And what I tell people, I said, like, just be active, to whatever degree, because the benefits physically, mentally of being active. And we all have capabilities, different, styles, walks, whatever it is. So just find something. If it's walking or running, if it's biking, if it's on a scooter, the one scooter, whatever, just be active and break a sweat, for 30, 60 minutes a day or every other day, whatever you can do. So I hope to see you out there soon, because I miss all the races and
I know, and I've been in my bubble, right? I've been in my trails, but going back to what you said about being active, yes. So you know how I just said, you're the gazelle. So we get that a lot, right? Like we get the whole, oh, I don't run like you. I'm not a runner like you. And I'm like, well, if you put one foot in front of the other, you're a runner.
That's right.
So what does that mean? You are a runner too, if you're doing that. So, but I do want to get back out there racing. My friend has committed me to the Marine Corps this year. So why not start with a bang again, right? Like,
hey, that's right. So Brian Deloge, he was, a guest recently on Run Life Today. So I'm glad to see we're all in the same family there.
Yes, we are.
All right, so let's move to another lane, right? Because I know there's another place that you spend a lot of time and energy and resources, and that's for our community, right? To benefit our community, whether it be serving on boards, volunteering at events, various different things. So share with us a little bit about those causes, organizations, where your heart is and what you care about, and that you support either with your time or energy or resources, if you don't mind.
So as you know, I kind of became involved in the community with the Tallahassee Marathon and Half Marathon, 2016, I think it was. Mm-hmm. So as I became the director for, 16 and 17. And that really, I think I described it when I received the award from Golf Wins about the director of the year. I literally poured my heart and my soul into that race. It was a feeling I can't really describe. It really energized me. It filled my soul because I knew I was doing something good. I was getting people active and I was helping the kids, and I was helping our community, and I was getting our community, like, when people are like, oh, why are you in Tallahassee? I was like, what do you mean why in Tallahassee? You got to come do this marathon, like, come over, So I was getting people from, I think at one point from Europe. We had a handful of people from Europe come to do this race. And it was a very humbling experience. I learned so much, and I poured my heart into it. That was one of those that, again, I'm like, when you're in the middle of it and you're just doing it, making it happen, you just don't think of it. And then when you sit down and you look back and you go, wow, we did that.
Yeah.
Like, how amazing. And then when I became involved with Hang Tough Foundation, that was also, you know, I have 3 kids. So the ability, and I'm very blessed and lucky that none of them have had any types of health issues. And so knowing that we could help kids in our community, not out, you know, not outside, like right here, it just felt really good. So
And because of those types of things that you did too, I know Leadership Tallahassee, you know, became a thing, and I'm sure you get calls and invitations to join boards quite often.
I do, yeah. Yeah, Leadership Tallahassee was funny because I had a handful, like I would go to Brugger's, that's my hangout place, everybody knows that, and they'd be like, you really should apply for this. And I was like, well, what is that? You know, I started researching, and Brian, you know, was like, no, really, you need to do it. And, you know, so I did it, and it opened up another door, right? It allowed me to see parts of our community that I didn't see before, because we're all in our bubbles. We all, you know, this is what we do, this is where we stay. And so it allowed me to see something different. And then from then, I became part of other boards. I'm currently in the Tallahassee Museum board, but I had to be very selective, and at the same time aware that, listen, I can't be in everything. Like, I just can't do it. You know, I go to events and this and this and that. And I would say, okay, I have a purpose. What is the purpose for me going? You know, am I helping out a friend? Am I there for, you know, in spirit for somebody? Do I really enjoy the cause? Like, because at the same time, I still have kids and job and my life and, you know, personal struggles that I was going through. So it was like, yes, but, you know.
So it's, you know, again, it's another one of those lanes. And I tell folks, you know, when they're asked to be on boards, because again, I've been a nonprofit executive director, and I've been asked to serve on other boards. And it's not the best thing for the organization if you can't commit.
Right.
And do it, right? Because I think too many of our very generous people in this community, they just overcommit because, you know, the nonprofits need their service. I get it. But you could be in the long term harming the nonprofit more than helping it if you're not going to be truly participatory, right? Just putting your name on it and showing up at one meeting a year, that's not helping the mission. So
no, it really isn't.
So kudos to you to, you know, to recognize where you got to say no, right?
Right.
So I want to do maybe another lane, because I know
we got so many, man. Like how many lanes do we have in our track?
but the family lane for you is special, and because I see it, you know, I know the love and affection you have for your kids, and you know, being the best mom you can be, and I have a lot of respect for you in that, because, you know, being a single parent is challenging. I was raised by a single parent by my mom, so you know, the survival, I think, is what we always talked about growing up. And when I became an adult, she said, I just got tired of having to do it every day, surviving every day. And so I can't relate to what you do, but I've seen it close, right?
Yeah.
So
personal, yes.
yeah, so I admire your energy there and your commitment to your family. But tell us a little bit about, you know, those challenges, or, you know, just the things that you really try to focus on when you're with your kids. What is it? What do you want to be the most?
So let's go back to, I've been a mom for 25 years, which I think people forget, because I have my 2, not so little anymore, but my 2 little ones. I added it all up, and I've been a mom, the combined years between my 3 of my kids, the 3 kids, I've been a mom longer than I've been alive. You know, if you add up all their ages. So being a mom, and again, I love who I am as a person, but I'm a really good mom. You know, I love who I am as a mom as well. With Nikki, you know, keep in mind, in high school and then going through college, I was, for a little bit, I was with her dad, but we had a really good relationship when split ways. So my daughter always saw the love in caring that we had for each other. But I was going to school. I was working at Publix. I, at some points, was also working on the state as a second job, and I had an internship that didn't pay me. So it was every minute that I could get with my daughter at that point. It was like, you know, everything is scheduled, but if it's at 12 to 3, like I would go to work, you know, Publix, school, I have that 12 to 3 window. I would hang out with her, be with her, whatever she wanted to do. And even now it's sort of is like that. I am a single mom. Like I said, have been for many years, and with my last two have been for over 4 years now. But I enjoy being in the thick of it all with them. I enjoy being very involved. It is challenging. It is not easy. And if we go back to, you know, I have employer support that helps me make that happen. And I have a network like my sister-in-law. I'm going to call her sister because I don't like saying sister-in-law, and I damn sure don't like saying ex-sister-in-law, right? Like, so my sister, you know, it's always there for my kids. But when I spend time with my kids, it's meaningful. Like, we have really good relationships. And my son the other day, he goes, I love that we're so open with each other. Awesome. And I actually have learned how to, as they have aged, how to incorporate them more and more into what I do. Obviously, as you saw, my son, they've been working with me for many, many years, but I began taking them to networking events and things like that. Cause I'm like, well, if you're going to have a networking event at 5 o'clock, how the heck do you think I'm going to get there? Having time to drop off the kids? No, I'm bringing them. And I've had women come to me and say, God, I wish I would have done that. And I mean, you're not going to bring a misbehaved kid. Like, if you know your kid can't handle it, then don't. But, you know, so I started doing that. When my friend Lauren Osley spoke pre-election, I took my daughter. I wanted Emma to see these women on stage, these women that we admired and know. So I took her with me. And again, she was the only little person there, but she ended up being the main thing at the end because she ended up in stage, you know, so it was, so I find ways of incorporating them into what I do and what I enjoy doing as well, in a way that it doesn't feel like they're just coming along with mommy.
I think the best thing we can do in order to move forward in that is to just own your fire.
Oh,
I don't know if I've heard that before anywhere.
Yeah.
But you know, before I get to, you know, the most important question, right? Because obviously we've laid out all these different lanes of your life that, you know, you've been able to be successful in, right? And I know there's
been many of failures, my friend, many of failures.
Right. There's a lot of success and failure, which is how you go about learning that art, right? And it's never perfect. There is no formula. You know, people are like, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? You learn over time of what works and what doesn't work. And you try to stick as close as you can to those things that do work and repeat them. But every now and then you make another mistake. But before we get to, you know, the obvious advice that you want to share with our audience, you know, if they're watching and they're like, hey, how can I get a little bit better at running more of life versus life learning me? I'd be remiss if I didn't give you a very short plug for Own Your Fire.
Thank you.
The book just came out. I mean, you know, tell us a couple sentences about, all right, this is why the book is there. This is what you get from it, and where can people find it?
So you're right. I released it last Friday on the 12th, and it was the 1-year anniversary of the talk that I had given at Women's Wednesday. That talk meant the world to me because it was the first time that I spoke publicly and about some issues. And then the book is basically kind of like you said, it's kind of dealing with adversity. It has a lot to do with what I went through as a child, as a grown-ass woman, and how I ended up in a situation, and then, you know, it never really ends, right? So like somewhere in there, you're kind of trying to find your way out, and how I help my kids through it as well, and how my running, my support system, and everything else around it helped me still be afloat. As my boss, Erwin, said, he's like, it's a book that can help a lot of people that are going through, other situations. You don't have to be in the same situation. Everybody has a story, right? So you can just take it and go with it. But people that have been through horrible divorces, or that are thinking about being divorced and thinking, the premise, the biggest part of it is like dealing with someone that has an addiction, and how you can, I had no idea what that world looked like until I was knee deep in it. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I get out of this? Because they're going to kill me if I don't get out. So, but then once you get out, what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, congratulations, and I look forward to, maybe I can get an autographed copy or
something.
something.
Oh, come on, at Heart and Soul on March.
I know, March 4th, I get
March
it.
4th.
Thanks for sharing your story there, because that's, if one person reads it and says, "Whoo, this is going to help me through it," then I think you've accomplished probably what you wanted to accomplish. Right?
100%. I was like, I could not have gone through all this and be selfish enough to keep it and not help someone else. I'm like, how can I help other people? Good. So good. That's my goal.
Well, I wish you the best on moving up the bestseller list.
Thank you. Thank you.
Top 10 soon.
Keep sharing, keep putting reviews, keep telling
all right,
people.
So let's close it up with that question, right? So if our audience is sitting there and they're like, there's so many things to do, share a few suggestions or tips on the art of integrating so many lanes of work and life. What do you say?
I say the first thing is perfection doesn't exist, especially for women. We want to be perfect. Many women start for that. And it's like, you got to give yourself a break. You've got to really look at your life and say, okay, what is it that's important? And if something, like I tell myself, I'm juggling balls all day long. Like, oh, sometimes I drop this one, sometimes my work ball drops, my kids drop but I pick it right back up. And instead of beating myself down because I dropped it, I just pick it up and put it back up there. And then just little by little, consistency. You mentioned that. It's all about consistency. It's about doing the same thing every day for whatever goal you're trying to do. So if you wanna incorporate moving into your life, you don't have to designate these crazy hours to do it. I go up and down your stairways at home or in the office or whatever. Sometimes I do lunges while doing vacuuming, or I'll do leg extensions or squats when I'm brushing my teeth. Like I swear I do. Push-ups when I'm waiting for the shower to warm up. It's funny because my kids walk into the bathroom, it's like, there's mom again, on the floor doing push-ups but just however it is that you can incorporate it, right? And incorporate your kids with it if you have any kids, because that they're going to see that example, they're going to learn to enjoy it, and then you become better relationships. But it's all about setting yourself like for success, not failure. If we can't do it all, like it's impossible. Yeah. So just realizing that and picking those things per week, per day, figure out what your day is going to look like where you can make it happen.
Awesome. I love what you're saying just about perfection and giving yourself grace. We just have to give yourself a little grace once in a while, to where, we make mistakes, we learn from them, or you can't be perfect. Nobody is setting that expectation. Come on. That's part of setting yourself up, I believe, for success, is realizing that you can't be perfect. I try to tell the kids, giving it your best effort, right? If you can look in the mirror and say, I tried my best, right. I'm good with that. Win or lose. Did you give it your best? Cool. But then the other piece you said, consistency. So give yourself grace, be consistent, and be creative.
Be creative. And how many times we look, I was telling my coworker, I was like, it's kind of like these conferences of companies, Airbnb is there and all these billion-dollar companies, if you listen to them, it took 10 to 20 years of failures, 10 to 20 years of repetition of doing the same thing over and over. Right. And then to become what they are now, or what they wanted to be. So it just takes time. When they dropped that ball, they didn't say, oh my God, poor me, I dropped that ball. They said, all right, let me pick it right back up and, figure out a different way to do it.
That's right. So as in your book, right, the whole purpose of Run Life today is hoping at least one person gets some takeaway that'll help them be a little better than they were the day before. And your advice, I'm sure, is going to make a difference here as well. So
Is it funny that my Instagram handle is Ellie Runs Life?
I know it is
Is
funny.
that like coincidental or what?
Well, there are a lot of parallels. I think you and I obviously have some things aligned when it comes to our thinking and mentalities. And it took me 2 years. I've been thinking about this, and
Yeah.
similar to people kept telling you to write a book, and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So at some point, you got to push from somebody. You did, I did, to finally say, all right, make it happen.
Yeah,
And
there you go. Make it happen.
mine's a little easier. I'm just doing interviews with people, right? But you wrote a book.
I don't think that's easy though.
It's a commitment. Yes, I'll say it's a commitment. But I'm grateful that you've given us the time and you've shared some things with us today. And for our audience, again, as a reminder, this episode and others, you can find them at runlifetoday.org. Like us, watch us, follow us, subscribe, all that good stuff. Ellie, have a wonderful day.
Okay? All right, baby. You have a good day. Thank you. Bye, guys.